Chapter 18, Companion Reading. On this day, when the two of them went back, the people at the Lantern Festival were almost scattered. Yanlin led the horse and helped her up. Still walking as when you came. It's just that he no longer gallops on horseback, but believes in the reins of the horse, and sits on the horse with her. I can't wait for this road back to Jiang's mansion to be a little longer, until the sky is wasted, the sea is dry and rotten, and there is no end. At this time, the young man was full of sincerity, and the beloved girl sat on his horse, and snuggled up in his arms, and could not think of anything else for a while. The pounding of his heart had taken over his entire mind. He was so anxious for the days ahead that he didn't notice the silence of the man sitting in front of him. The wind is slightly cold. Zhang Xuning could feel the hot heat coming from her chest behind her. It's just that she looked at the more and more familiar road back to Zhang Mansion in front of her, but her heart became more and more confused. If she was the age of a girl at this moment, and faded away from the paranoia and ignorance of the previous life, she would meet a young man like this who went to the soup for her. She would be happy, shy, and excited for his sword, for his eyes, for him to hold her palm tightly, and the wood hibiscus cast on the high wall. But she wasn't anymore. When I arrived at the gate of Jiang's mansion, it was already late at night. Yanlin helped her off the horse again, and told her with a smile, "I have to sleep well when I go back tonight." After saying that, he got back on the horse. But when he turned his head and saw that she was still standing at the door looking at him, he said, "Go back to the house, I'll look at you." Zhang Xuning looked back at him quietly and asked him, "Yanlin, you always spoil me and protect me like this, have you ever thought about it? What would I be like if I didn't have you one day, and what would I do?" Yanlin was stunned. He felt that she was a little sad today, and only said, "How can you not have me? I will always be by your side." Zhang Xuning felt heartache for a while, and even felt uncomfortable looking at him again, so she chuckled, "Yes. Then I'll go back." Yanlin nodded. So she turned around and walked into the side door of Jiang's mansion that was still open for her. Yanlin sat on the horse for a long time, holding the reins, watching her figure gradually disappear, but a feeling of confusion suddenly surged in her heart.
星号.
Many people in Jiang's mansion didn't sleep, just waiting for her to come back. The news of the assassin in the capital had already spread during the day, and Zhang Boyu almost beat his heart out of his heart when he heard that Zhang Xuning was actually present at the time, and he happened to be held hostage by the assassin. Fortunately, everyone else said she was fine. It's just that later this little girl was actually abducted by Yanlin to go to the Lantern Festival, which is really angry. Zhang Boyu had a plan in his heart, and when Zhang Xuning came back, he had to give her a good lecture. But when I saw her come back, her face was really not good. At this time, I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for this girl. The assassination of this file was either the rebellion of King Pingnan against the party, or the chaos of the Tianjiao party. No matter what, it was not Ning Yatu's fault. It was so miserable and she had to be harshly criticized. It was too much. So before she could speak, her heart softened, and she only said to her in a warm voice, "Recently, it has been quite peaceful in Beijing, and I heard that Jin Yiwei has arrested many rebels who are making trouble, and today Xie Zhuan is not the only one who has been attacked. Although you and Yanlin are on good terms, and I am relieved of him, no one knows what will happen. During this time, you should go out less, and when it is more peaceful, you will go out again." He thought that Zhang Xuning would have to refute 2 sentences. But she didn't expect that this time she would lower her eyebrows and answer, "Okay." For more than 10 days, she really didn't go out again. Only the day after the attack, she sent someone to Shijihutong and asked Zhou Yanzi to bring a famous post to Yanlin. She didn't bother to ask about anything after that. Within 2 days, Yanlin went with his father Yan Jiho to inspect the Fengtai camp and the Tongzhou camp, and only returned on the 21st day of September. It was also the morning of this day that news spread in the palace, saying that the eldest princess of Liang envied the Wenhua palace, and begged the saint to find a few reliable gentlemen for her, and wanted to read some books seriously. So the saint sent a message and chose a companion for the eldest princess to read. When he went to the next court, he explained to the ministers, asking them to have daughters in their families and princesses of the same age, pick a good character to report it, and then select it from the palace. At this moment, the thoughts of the civil and military forces of the Manchu dynasty were all activated. Who doesn't know that the eldest princess of Liang is favored? And now when Huahal accompanies the emperor to listen to the scriptures and feasts, which one is not a nobleman and a genius of the family? Not to mention how good it is to enter the palace and be the eldest princess's companion when the girl's family marries in the future. Just this opportunity to connect with the in-laws, as well as the faces of each family after being selected, are worth the strength of the big guys to fight. How other families arrange it, Jiang Xuning doesn't know. She only knows her own family. After Zhang Boyu came back from the palace, he told the Meng family about this and said to her, I heard that during the Chongyang festival banquet a while ago, Ning Yetu seemed to be looked at differently by the eldest princess of Liang in Qingyu and Bafu, and she looked very close to and liked it. Each family reported the candidates, and the palace had to pick them again. In terms of character and talent, Shui Hui is a child who is more suitable, calm, and dignified, and not easy to cause trouble, but it may not be as good as other girls. Ning Yetu reported it, and it was very likely that she would be selected, but she had a stubborn temperament, and she was afraid that she would be more tricky than the eldest princess, and she would not be angry. What should I do? When Meng Shi heard this, his brows furrowed. She knew that Zhang Boyu was ashamed of Ning Yetu and had the reason for being brave and resolute, and she was particularly partial to Ning Yetu, but it was very important to enter the palace to accompany the eldest princess, so where could Jiang Xuning be reassured? She said, Sister Ning is impetuous, but the palace is restrained, she may not be willing to go. Zhang Boyu glanced at her, I actually think that Sister Hui will be safer. It's not that it's partial, but Sister Ning's temperament is really worrying. It doesn't matter if you don't have a face, you're just afraid of getting into trouble. However, this kind of matter still has to be discussed with the two sisters, so Zhang Boyu said, go and invite the two young ladies to come. Meng Shi felt angry again for a while, and sighed, I'm just afraid that Sister Ning will fight again, and I won't give up. Asterisk. Jiang Xuning was taking a nap, and when she was suddenly called, she was actually a little angry when she got up, but it was not good to have a seizure. After cleaning up, I found that Zhang Suiwai had arrived early. She bowed and sat down. Zhang Boyu told them everything, and finally said, now I only know how to choose a companion to read, what to learn and how to do it when I enter the palace, but I still don't know anything. But the companions of the princes of this dynasty all have to live in the palace, and you all know what the palace is. You have to be cautious, you have to pick a safe one. Sister Kenning seems to be very blue-eyed by the eldest princess. What do you two think? There was a moment of silence below. Jiang Xuning sat still and didn't speak. Jiang Suiwai lowered her head, looked at the embroidered handkerchief in her hand, and remembered the person she bumped into when she came back from the Chongyang banquet in the Kuagong mansion a few days ago. But she is not a serious concubine in the house, although she has the status of a concubine now, she has no position to fight for herself in front of Jiang Xuning. At the moment, he only said softly, but it's up to your parents to decide. Meng Shi glanced at Jiang Xuning intently, and said, there are only two girls in the mansion, and it is suitable for anyone to go. One has a calm temperament, and the other pleases the princess. But entering the palace is not easy after all, and it has to be accompanied by reading. We don't want you to fight for any glory in the house, but as long as you come out safely. Sister Ninger is too lively, although there may be Yan Shizi in the palace to take care of her, but the rules in the palace are strict, and the prince does not live in the palace, so she may not be able to take care of it. Therefore, it stands to reason that it is more appropriate for Sister Hui to go. Zhang Xuning listened expressionlessly. Zhang Boyu was always paying attention to her expression, and after listening to Meng's words, he was inexplicably a little weak-hearted, and felt that this was a little unfair to the second daughter, so he hurriedly made up for it. Of course, Ning Yetu is what the princess likes, and it is for the princess to read. If you want to go, you should submit your name. Meng pursed his lips and stopped talking. Zhang Suiwai really didn't have much hope. She is familiar with Sister Ning's temperament, but if she has something, Sister Ning must be a better one. Now that she has the opportunity to enter the palace to accompany her to study, other ladies from other families will break her head. How can Sister Ning let her get her wish? Although this time she actually has a little hope. But it's just a little bit. Zhang Xuning sat for a long time, and everyone's eyes fell on her. Her eyes fell on Zhang Suiwai. Zhang Boyu and Meng Shi waited for a long time, and they didn't listen to her. They just thought that she was giving up this opportunity to Zhang Suiwai by default, and for a while they all had a feeling that a big stone in their hearts had fallen to the ground. Meng Shi breathed a sigh of relief, and opened his mouth to say, "Then the matter is settled." But just as she was about to speak, Zhang Xuning actually stood up from her seat. Before he could say anything, he suddenly blocked his throat. Meng's eyelids jumped. Zhang Suiwai turned her eyes and saw it, and only sighed slightly bitterly in her heart. Sure enough. Even Zhang Boyu secretly shouted it's going to be bad, and wondered in his head how to settle this matter when Ning Yetu made trouble for a while. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xuning didn't even look at anyone, closed her eyes, bowed, and said, "Father and mother are polite." Although the opportunity to enter the palace this time is rare, her daughter knows her temperament and can't bear it. But my sister is dignified and virtuous, and she is willing to go, and she has dealings with the nobles of the family in Beijing, so it will be more appropriate to enter the palace. This time, let my sister go, and my daughter had no opinion. Zhang Boyu was suddenly blindsided. What did you say? Meng couldn't help but sit up straight. You dash. Zhang Suiwai was also stunned, her eyes flashed, and she was inexplicably moved. Sister Ning. Zhang Xuning snorted, and then remembered Wan Niang, and didn't give her any face, but said, "Don't think that I want to fulfill someone this time. I don't want to enter the palace because I can't stand the rules of the palace. I've taken a fancy to what you're going to do tomorrow, so I'll take it for granted." Zhang Suiwai was speechless, just looking at her. Zhang Xuning turned her eyes away, and said directly to Zhang Boyu and Meng, "If the father and mother have nothing else to do, the daughter will retire." Where did Zhang Boyu and Meng Shi think that things would be so easy? I haven't reacted yet. When I heard her words, I had some complicated emotions in my heart for a while. I thought that Sister Ning would make some trouble, but she gently and skillfully let go of this great opportunity, which made them feel a little ashamed of their previous thoughts. Zhang Boyu hurriedly said, "It's okay." Zhang Xuning didn't procrastinate, saluted again, and withdrew from the house. There were only 3 of them left in the hall, with different expressions. After all, Zhang Suiwai looked at the thin back that had gradually disappeared on the corridor, laughed slowly, and said to Meng, "Sister Ning's heart is actually very soft." Meng was silent. Zhang Boyu was a little moved, and only sighed, "Sister Ning is so sensible, but I am a little unaccustomed to it. It's really grown up. I know how to sympathize with us, and I know how to let my sister." Fortunately, Zhang Xuning didn't hear these words, otherwise she might have laughed out loud. I'm afraid that everyone thinks that she has given up a great opportunity to enter the palace to study, but I don't know that she didn't plan to ask for this opportunity at all. When you walk out of the hall, don't walk too briskly. Lianer almost couldn't keep up with her, and shouted as she walked, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you, girl? That's a good opportunity to enter the palace and go to the eldest princess to accompany her. How many people in the capital have sharpened their heads, and they may not be able to get in. You just let it out." Zhang Xuning sneered, "I'm stupid if I go. Where is the outside comfortable in the palace? Walking, sitting, and lying down should be disciplined. Not to mention the companions selected by the families of the ministers and nobles below. Even those concubines who entered the palace to serve the emperor were cautious in their words and deeds, and did not dare to slack off. When she entered the palace, she realized how hard life was. Fortunately, she was crowned queen later, and no one dared to say anything even if she acted presumptuously. But what was it like to read with you in the last life? Xiao Shu, who is proficient in everything and powerful in everything, is overwhelmed, and the eldest princess of Liang, who hates her because of love, seized the opportunity to find her wrong place and did not let her out. What's even more terrifying is that there are two lessons that invite Mr. Xiaoweiding. In the previous life, she had no grudge against Xiaowei at this time, and the other party didn't embarrass her much. But in this life, Mr. Xiaoweiding, and how can she live? Not to mention that the eyes of the eldest Princess Liang made her feel palpitations before, and Yanlin often went in and out of the palace. If she wants to toss herself into it again, it will be because her head is too iron and her life is too hard. It's just that Zhang Boyu and Meng Shi asked, Zhang Suiwai was also sitting there. She really didn't want her to be too happy, so she deliberately delayed it for a long time. In the end, though, the results were somewhat unexpected. They all seemed to think of themselves as a good thing. But it's okay, it's not a bad thing. As for Zhang Suiwai's admission to the palace to accompany the study, will she suffer? What does that have to do with her? Asterisk. After Zhang Xuning returned to the house, she moved them up and counted their belongings again, only thinking in her heart, now that the matter of accompanying reading has fallen on Zhang Suiwai, even if she doesn't choose it when she turns around, she has nothing to do with entering the palace. In this way, it is completely deviated from the trajectory of the previous life. She didn't provoke Shenju either. Then, just find a suitable opportunity to make it clear to Yanlin, and then wait for the matter of the Yanji Marquis mansion to be settled. No matter whether the final result is good or bad, she has done her best, and then she can go back to Tongzhou to live, or simply take her bags and learn from Yu Fangyan in the previous life to go to the world. The scenery outside is so good, why trap yourself in a corner? The small abacus has been crackling for a while. Although the case of Yanji Haofu's implication in the rebellion of King Pingnan still made her a little worried, she rarely had a good night's sleep. In the afternoon of the next day, the list of candidates in the palace came down. When it was passed to Jiang's mansion, Zhang Boyu and Meng couldn't believe their eyes, and repeatedly confirmed with the eunuchs from the palace, "Father-in-law, don't make a mistake in this list, right?" The father-in-law didn't know the inside story, so he just said, "That's what the decree says, and the slave family doesn't know. Anyway, it's all your girl, and it's not bad. The day after the decree, you can pack up some things and enter the palace, learn some rules first, and familiarize yourself with the situation in the palace. If it's really not suitable, you'll be singled out, but in short, you can prepare it for the young lady." Zhang Boyu and Meng Shi looked at each other. When the news reached Zhang Xuning, she was still ordering her own things in the house, preparing to go back and exchange some valuables that were not easy to carry for silver tickets, and it would be more convenient to go out later. As a result, Liana rushed in. "Girl, it's you. It's you." Zhang Xuning listened to her voice, and her brain hurt. But Liana, this girl, jumps out, and her thoughts are generally different from hers. If Liana thinks that there is a good thing, it must be a bad thing. As soon as the small pen drawn on the account book stopped, Zhang Xuaning's eyelids jumped, and asked, "What is me?" Lianer gasped, enter the palace. Zhang Xuaning's scalp exploded, and she dropped her pen and stood up. What did you say? Lianer didn't understand the situation yet, thinking that she was overjoyed, and hurriedly explained to her, the girl's name is written in the list of companions in the palace. You'll be reading for the princess soon. Zhang Xuaning's head suddenly buzzed, and thousands of thoughts swept through like a tide. In the end, only one remained. Obviously, the name was not presented, but the final companion list was there. The palace is an authentic Shura field. Who's behind me?